Hi there, Wayne Hedlund with Wayne Hedlund Consulting. In this video, we're going to talk about Asana in particular, an issue that is a challenge for a lot of organizations. So we're working on a project and something happens. The date needs to shift for one reason or another, but it's not just one date that needs to shift. We have a whole bunch of dates that need to shift. And the last thing that we want to do is to have to come in here and manually change the date for each of these and try to remember the gap in between each of them. So January 13th, I want to change all of these dates here, maybe like 3 or 4 days forward. And theoretically, I can do that manually, but that would be extremely tedious. So in this video, we're going to talk about how we can shift dates. There are 3 methods where you can shift dates in Asana in bulk and keep the margin or the gap between the dates as you shift them without really spending a ton of time on it. So the first method, let's talk about the first method. The first method has to do with dependencies. Now, this method is only reliable and useful if your projects are completely dependent. In other words, if all of the tasks inside the project are all dependent on other tasks in the project, or if the dates that you want to shift all already have dependency associated with them. In that scenario, it's going to work great. This also includes subtasks. So you can see right here for my determined event budget, I have 5 subtasks. These subtasks are already dependent. Actually, they're blocking this task. So this task here will not get done until these tasks get done. And I can very quickly see those dependencies by just coming over here to options, and I can toggle on dependencies very quickly, and I can see all the dependency. I can see all of my tasks have dependencies connected with one another. So I feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to use this method for this scenario. So in order to do this, there are actually a couple of methods that we can shift dates en masse for the entire project. However, we first need to make sure a setting is in place. So we need to go to the timeline view. And if for some reason you don't have the timeline view available, you can go ahead and click on the plus sign and find that timeline view. You can also use the Gantt view for this as well. And so right now, when I pop into the timeline view, this timeline view looks really kind of crazy. So one of the things that we can do if we want is we could pull it back a little bit. So let's just look by weeks and months if we need to. The other thing, if we need to, is we can also set that sort so that let me sort by start date or due date. And in that scenario, let's just pull it back out to maybe, let's say, months. And now I can at least kind of see how my everything is shifting. I can see all the dependencies that are connected, etc. Right? So the setting that we need to set up here is right here where it says options. Inside the timeline or the Gantt view, we click on options and we see manage dependencies. So there are 3 options that we need to consider. The first one is none, consume buffer, or maintain buffer. So none means that we can go ahead and make changes. We can drag tasks around and it will not affect the other tasks. In this scenario, like if I take, let's just say this task right here and move it, it will not adjust any of the other tasks, right? So I'll move that back right there. So in that particular scenario, we're not moving things in bulk the way that we want to. So let's go back to our options and talk about manage dependencies. And we have consume buffer. If we do that, what will happen is if I move a task forward or backwards, it will it'll adjust the tasks around it, but it will remove the gap between the tasks. I'm not going to really spend time on that in this video. You can test that to see what it looks like. And then, of course, the one that is relevant for us today is the maintain buffer. The maintain buffer is the one that we want to hold on to. It's going to make sure that the gap between all of our tasks is maintained when we try to move tasks. And we can turn on weekend awareness if we want to. So it'll basically avoid weekends or not. I'm going to leave that turned off and we're going to click Save Changes. We got Maintain Buffer turned on and now we can click Save Changes. Now that we have done that, we also can determine whether or not that some of the tasks have been marked as complete or not. So for instance, I'm going to go back to my list view and maybe mark this Define Event Objective and Goals as complete. If I jump back over to my timeline view, I can see that there are 2 tasks that have been marked as complete. All right, so here, let's go ahead and do it. We're going to actually move our entire project, including subtasks, And we're going to do this simply by clicking and dragging and dropping. So I'm going to move these out to maybe April 21st. That's the first task. In fact, let's just go ahead and put that back, and let's just jump down to maybe the actual day of the picnic, because that probably makes more sense. Here's our milestones, our picnic day, and let's say we have to move that picnic out a good couple of weeks. So I'll move it out here to July 24th. I can see what's highlighted there in blue on the bar, and so I can say July 24th. I'll let that go, and you'll see all of the tasks have shifted. So great, great, great. It worked perfectly for me. Of course, it did not shift the tasks that were marked as complete because those tasks are already done, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I can do this for any task because they're all dependent on one another. Move it back to around where it was, and all those tasks are moved. So far, so good. Now, before we kind of move away from this, let's talk about a couple other options related to moving tasks with dependencies. First of all, once you have set that setting right here, manage dependencies to maintain buffer, you also can make those adjustments within the list view. So let's jump down here, and we can change this July 12th to that July 24th date. However, very, very important, if I change the date using the traditional calendar view, it will not adjust any other dates. You see, my July 12th, these dates did not adjust. So in order to, facilitate this in a way that's going to make sense and work, in this scenario with the dependencies, what we want to do instead of using the calendar view is we want to look for a blue button at the top of the calendar that says Update. In this scenario now, it's going to connect all of those dependent tasks to the new date that I select. So I'm going to select the 24th as we did before. Now, I do notice that sometimes Asana does this, and maybe they'll change it later on. It's trying to set a start and end date, even though I didn't want it to. So in this scenario, I'm going to have to click on 24 twice, and I see, and that'll make sure that it's just one date. So I clicked on it twice, and you'll see now it's given me a preview of all of the tasks that are going to change based on that new date. I'm going to click Save, and it went ahead and made those changes for me. All right, so both methods are pretty much the same thing. One's the drag and drop, and the other one is using that special update button. I'm going to mention one more thing about the dependencies, and this is also true for tasks with subtasks. So in this scenario, I don't have dependencies. None of these other tasks are dependent on anything. But a lot of times what I find is people just want to use dependencies inside of the subtasks associated with a task. So I have this determine event budget here, and looks like there's no dependencies set there for it. So let me just kind of make sure. So this one, receive last year's budget, is blocking. So I'm also going to make all of these tasks right here. I'm just going to highlight all of them, and I'm going to create a dependency. The dependency is actually, I'm going to cheat just because sometimes it's hard to find the right task when you're trying to search for tasks. So I highlighted all 5 of those tasks, and I'm going to have them block that one. Let's go ahead and create a dependency. We're going to type determine event budget, and hopefully we're going to find the one that we're looking for. It's not finding it for me. All right, there it is right there. Determine event budget. I can see that it's the correct one because I put those two characters right there. So first of all, before I click it, I'm going to actually say blocking. So, and then I'm going to try to find it again. And great. So sorry, I did not do that prior to this presentation. So what I'm basically showing you here is all of these subtasks and the parent task are dependent on one another. So same thing holds true. As long as I have set the dependency rule inside the timeline view right here under options, as long as I have that maintain buffer set, then I can go ahead and make a change to the parent task right here. I can go ahead and instead of February 21st through the 26th, let's say it's going to be February 28th through the 5th. Oh, I'm not doing it right. I already blew it. So let's go back and put those back, 21st through the 26th, because I was trying to do that using this calendar, which is very tempting. But again, I want all these subtasks to roll as appropriate. So I'm going to click on the update button instead. And now let's try again, 27th through the 5th right here. Okay. And it's going to show me all those subtasks are going to change based on that. Boom, we're good. All right. So that is the first method for, shifting dates. Again, this is not super relevant for probably many of you who are watching this, because dependencies is a very unique method and tool that is only used in certain scenarios. So let's jump over to another method that is a little easier to understand, but it's still, you have to navigate and do it properly. You need to make sure you follow some rules. So this one is basically just shifting dates using the timeline view, a drag and drop method. So again, you're going to jump over the timeline view, but in this scenario, we do not have dependencies. Now you'll see here in the timeline view, I've got it set up to pull out by week. So I'm going to pull that out maybe by months to kind of pull everything a little closer. And if I want to, I can just kind of see my entire timeline here of my picnic as I scroll through. And I can also see the sections, right? And I can see each of the sections. So in this scenario, we can actually, we don't need to worry about, dependencies or anything, because there are no dependencies. It's literally just a drag and drop method. So if I click somewhere in the just blank area and click and drag, you'll see that I can highlight a number of tasks. So I've just highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tasks. And now I can just click on one of these tasks and drag. And as I drag it, you will see that it's also dragging all of the other tasks that I had highlighted. This is a quick and easy way to adjust dates without losing the margin between those dates, if you're doing it especially just for a small number of tasks. However, there are a couple of issues with this. The first one is you'll notice that I moved all these tasks and everything seems to be fine. However, you'll see that there are 5 subtasks here and I did not highlight them. So if I come over here and open that, you'll see that those tasks still remain back here where they originally were. So let's go ahead and move those tasks back. We're going to drag and drop them maybe around, say it's around there. I think that's about where it was. Let's look at our subtasks. Okay, so to be honest with you, it's not quite aligned, but I guess it'll be aligned up enough. Go back 2 more. All right. So now my subtasks are lined up the way that they were originally. If I want to make sure those subtasks get moved, the downside to this is I also have to make sure that I expand those subtasks and highlight them. In this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to move these back here to February, and now everything's going to move and we're happy. Another little bit of a challenge with this method is if for some reason we're trying to make this move and you decide to start from the top and you want to move a whole bunch of tasks, it can start getting a little messy. Like for instance, this setup Asana project. Let's say I'm just going to move one task right now. If I move this task over here, what Asana is going to do based on the sort that I have set up is it's no longer going to be the top task. Okay, so it's just going to kind of, well, in that case it is because I didn't have the sort set. So if I had set the sort, sorry about that, in that particular scenario, it worked fine because I had the sort not set. But if you had the sort set, let me just go ahead and sort it back over there, because a lot of times people don't want to see all of these sections. They want to see everything kind of all clean and drawn out. So in this scenario, again, the setup Asana project first task is at the top, but if I move it over here, it goes down here to the bottom. So where it gets messy is if I try to highlight, let's say, these tasks and I start to move them into the other tasks, then it starts to kind of start looking a little weird. Now these tasks are still highlighted, but I can see the other tasks because the way it's set up to sort, and it's going to be hard for me to remember how to move those tasks. So a couple of options for that. First of all, I already kind of showcased it in advance. First of all, let's just kind of move these back there. So one option would be to actually turn that sort off, and then you theoretically can drag these tasks over here like this, and they'll stay at the top. And then we can kind of scroll down and drag a few more tasks, and we can continue to kind of build our way through the system. So not my favorite method. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, because if you zoom out on your browser, you also can just tend to be able to highlight more tasks. most of you probably have realized too is I'm still messing up because you remember I'm not selecting those subtasks. So those tasks are not moving as I move everything else. That's one of the downsides if you use a lot of subtasks. So the other approach, if you're going to use this method, is actually to start at the bottom. So if we go to the closing phase and scroll over to where my closing tasks are, don't have any closing tasks. Where are they? Let's jump over to the list view. Oh yeah, there they are. July 16th. Okay, so let's jump back over. I must have missed them. Scroll down here. Oh, that's why I was like still in the weeks view. So let's just pull out to maybe the months view, and let's minimize these. Planning, and now let's click at the closing stage. There they are, right there. So another approach is to kind of start at the end. So in this particular case, especially if I'm moving the tasks forward, then I would probably want to start at the end, drag and drop these tasks. And if I knew I'm moving, I'm going to have to count. But like if it's a short number, if it's just like 5 days, I can go 16, 1, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I move them all 5 days. Then I jump over here and I can highlight these and I can move them all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. If I'm moving them more than 5 days, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. I'm going to have to just kind of make sure I do the math. If I jump all of these way over here like this, then I can come over here and jump all of these. And if I know the gap between the two sections, I can hopefully maintain it. And then again, I would maybe collapse the closing section, open the preparation section. This one, it's got a lot more tasks. So I might, because these two tasks are the same, I might actually do this to kind of help me. Just kind of come over here. I know that that's going to be there. So now I know that these tasks right here are going to align with this one. And I think you get the idea. So I'm going to highlight those tasks. I'm going to align these ones with that one, which should align everything else, etc. So that's another method. It's a little sticky. It's not my favorite. But again, if we're just moving a few tasks, it actually works really well just to be able to do that drag and drop. Just do not forget there is that limitation of making sure that you don't mess up with those subtasks. All right, that's the second method. First method is shifting dates using dependencies. Second method, shifting dates using the drag and drop in the timeline view. And the last method, which is actually relatively new, has to do with actually changing dates by duplicating an entire section. So let's go ahead and what we're going to do in this scenario is we're actually going to duplicate or copy an entire section of tasks, but we're going to select new due dates for these tasks. So let's say this is August 5th, and I've decided that I actually want all of these tasks to change, but I want it to be based on, let's say, August 15th, right? So instead of doing the timeline view and dragging and dropping, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to find that section and I'm going to duplicate the entire section by clicking on the 3 dots next to closing. Click Duplicate Section. I'm going to make sure that I turn on Assignee and Collaborators, and I'm going to rename this closing section. This is a duplicate. I'm going to call it Duplicate or Closing New, let's call it, just so that we can see, hopefully maintain understanding of the difference between the two sections. And then right down here it says Set New Due Date for Duplicated Tasks. I'm going to go ahead and set the due date. In this particular case, I wanted it to be an end date, and I said I think I wanted it to be August 15th. So let's just go ahead and select August 15th. And so I'm choosing the end date. That's going to be the last day. Do I want those tasks to be scheduled on weekends? I'm going to turn that on for right now, and I'm going to go ahead and create the new section. Now, Asana is going to build that section and is going to reproduce almost everything in that section, and it's going to roll those dates from August 15th. Instead of July 30th to August 5th, we can already see that it's going to be August 9th, I'm assuming, to the 15th when we're done. So obviously when we're done here, we also need to make sure that we remove the tasks that are part of the section that we no longer have interest in maintaining, right? So I'm going to wait until Asana has done its number crunching here. It looks like it has one more task to create. complete and archive Asana project. That's supposed to say complete right here. So that's just a reminder to archive this project when we're done. And now it's finished. So obviously we're going to come into these tasks and we're going to actually delete them, right? Or we can just come right into the entire closing section. This is the old section that we're wanting to delete. We can actually click on the three dots here and we could say delete section. If we do that, we also have to make sure that we don't mark this one because it'll keep those tasks. Instead, we actually want to delete those tasks in the old section. And we can delete that section. Now we can rename this section as just closing, and we have successfully moved all those tasks and maintained the gap between them. Now, one of the main downsides to this method is if you have comments that are in your existing tasks, right? If there's some existing comments that are in there, those new comments will not be duplicated when you duplicate the section. So if you already have some communications back and forth between you and your team, then you will lose that when it duplicates those tasks. You will not lose some of the other things that are already associated with the task, like subtasks and custom fields, etc. So just keep in mind that that is the case. And if you don't want to lose some history on what's going on or what has been happening with those tasks, then you would probably want to jump over to the timeline view and do the drag and drop method instead. All right, so I think that sums up the three methods that I'm aware of where you can shift dates in bulk in Asana and maintain the gap between them. We have the dependency method based on whether or not all of your tasks have dependencies. We have the simple drag and drop method, just keeping in mind the issue of also selecting and highlighting those subtasks. And then, of course, we have the duplicate section method, which would let us duplicate an entire section. I'll just kind of add as one more thing. If for some reason you actually wanted to update and use the duplicate section for the entire project, of course, you can do that by each section. You also theoretically could create a new section temporarily. You can drag or move all of the tasks into that new section that you would create, duplicate that new section, and then move all the tasks back. A little bit of work, but if it lets you keep all of your timeline up to date the way that you want it, it may be valuable to you. I think that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Have a great day. Bye now.